Set.
Hey, we're back. Adam here, the roof strategist, joined again by Jim with Roofer Marketers. Jim, good to have you back again.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Hey, if you guys didn't watch the first part of this, we just did a video on omnipresence, getting seen everywhere online all the time. Check that out. This is part two. We are talking about the best lead sources versus the worst lead sources, which is one of the hottest topics for marketers, where to get leads. So, Jim, thanks again for being here, and let's jump in. All right, best versus worst lead sources. So Jim, I brought this up to you as a concept, and you're like, where do we even start?
Yeah.
Before we do, Jim, have you ever had clients work with you or roofing companies work with you and then share their like horror stories of how much money they have lost on lead sources?
Lots of times.
Yes.
I talk to 40, 50 contractors a month. And I hear those stories all the time. And the number one horror story that I always hear about is this company that ranks in the search results almost number one for everything in relation to home services.
Mm-hmm. We know that person.
That orange logo. But then I also find that some companies do really well with those lead sources. So
yeah,
it's a weird thing.
I'll touch on that too. I just had a conversation similar. And part of it too, one thing, as we watch this, so this video is mostly applicable to owners who are looking to invest money in paid leads. And there's the best ways to do it, and there's the worst ways to do it. And we're going to help you avoid those pitfalls, because one thing that roofers are hardwired to think about is paying for performance. I want to pay per lead. And they're like glued in this mindset. The problem with that is when you, one, are paying per lead, you often have least control, or those leads aren't exclusive. And two, I even, man, this flipped everything for me. I had a client that I was working with for years, and I found this awesome company that would go out and canvas under their brand, exclusive leads. $5,000 check, stroked it, guy generates some leads, next storm comes, he's off. He ended up stealing, I think, $4,500 from my client. And I felt horrible. So to this day, like, it's, if I send a referral, it is like, vet them and you find for yourself, because I don't want my hands getting dirty or muddied from it. And which is why I bring quality people in, like Jim, who I actually believe in, and are here to provide value. So anywho, even if you think like, I'm going to invest this money and get these leads in return, even if they're exclusive, things can go south. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Best versus worst lead sources. So before we jump in, and then I'm going to turn this over to Jim and shut up for a minute. Best lead sources ultimately are exclusive. They're scalable. They are predictable, and they yield a positive ROI. So many people ask, what should my marketing budget? What should I budget for this? The answer is nothing until you know what you're buying and what it's going to produce. Marketing done right is a cash machine. Money goes in, money comes out. That is the art of scaling. So many roofers approach this by, well, let's test it, or let's see what finds out. And it's like throwing a wad of cash at the wall and seeing what might bounce back to you, but most of it's going to lay on the floor at the wall and not come back. And those are the worst sources, which are often third party, farmed out to multiple people, things that can turn on and off, done by an outside person, which I don't mean an outside vendor. I mean like third party, those lead sources that we talked about before.
Third party branded leads.
Yeah, third party branded. Thank you. The kind where all of a sudden that lead comes in and the homeowner is getting hammered by like 20 different roofers calling. So let's jump in. Best lead source. If I was to say, Jim, where can I see the highest ROI from a lead? Where would you first turn?
Referrals.
Yes, I love that. That's funny. That was not planned. Anyone knows
that is the highest ROI on a lead that you can generate, right?
Yeah.
Because you didn't pay for that lead. You didn't pay for that lead. I'm throwing air quotes if you're not watching this, if you're listening. Pay for that lead. I think that conversation starts a lot of times with a customer acquisition cost, right? And knowing understanding what you have to spend to generate a new client. And so the best marketing, the best lead sources will fall within that optimal customer acquisition cost. Whether it comes from from a lead from your website online, whether it comes from a mailer, whether it comes from canvassing, there's a cost to everything, right? So
every time the phone rings, you can put a dollar amount to it.
There's a dollar amount to the, exactly. And that is, if you're not familiar with the term, it's customer acquisition cost. So take the number of leads that you generated last year, or number of customers divided into number of leads, however that math works, and you'll get your customer acquisition cost on your total business for the year.
The spend behind the marketing leads.
The spend behind the marketing. And that's where, the best leads are not always the cheapest leads. They may not be, the cheapest lead. Now, it is true that you can get a great lead for a low cost, but you may spend some money, right? But, if you're running pay-per-click marketing, you could spend, $250, $300 to generate a phone call for your business. And that is a scary thing for people. But the right marketing dollars, put behind in the right places, will definitely generate those leads. And I probably went off on a little tangent on the original question.
No, that's good. It's not a tangent. I'm going to continue on the tangent because I think it's valuable. When we talk about acquisition costs, I cannot even tell you how many clients I've worked with who don't have a pulse on those numbers. As a business owner, there are a few key metrics that are critical for you to know, and this applies for salespeople. What is my cost per lead? How many leads am I generating? How many of those leads are qualified leads? What is my closing rate? And what is my cost per customer? Okay. Cost per lead, total leads, qualified leads, closing rate, cost per customer. If there's nothing else you measure in your business and you focus on those 5 things only, you will scale your business guaranteed. The first thing I do is focus on those numbers. And if you don't know what it costs you to acquire a customer, industry average, and Jim, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I've seen on average about $500 to $1,600 for a customer.
Okay. That's fair.
Perfect. And the reason, when you look, by the way, at like scaling systems, I really like to look at retail windows, because retail window companies are run like a true sales organization. They know, if I spend this amount, I'm going to get this many leads. And those leads are expensive. I know those leads will run $500 to $1,600. Our acquisition cost is that. Their leads are going to run that. But they also know, and they have strict quotas on their sales, that of those leads that come in, they're going to close a certain amount. So they'll say, hey, I'll spend that money on the TV spot or on the radio spot. So getting a pulse on those numbers makes the sky the limit. And just last thing on that tangent, those cheap leads from those farmed out third-party websites, they might be $75 a lead, but you might close 1 in 10, $750 per customer. Whereas let's imagine you run a Google lead, paid pay-per-click lead, and that phone call might be $250 even in a really competitive market, but you're going to close 50%. That's a $500 acquisition cost. But so many roofers are like, I ain't paying $250 for a call. Hell, I would. They're calling me personally, versus 75, where all of a sudden I'm going to be racing to bombard them. So anyway, end of rant. Back to you.
So let's dive into the more, what is a quality lead versus a lack of quality. So first of all, in lead quality, opportunity is the game. So if, would you define a lead as someone who is interested in the services you provide in your service area? That's kind of a lead, right? That's what I would define a lead as. Now, that doesn't mean that person is willing to let you give them an estimate. They may be willing to let you come out to the house. They may be, right? They may just be interested. They may be interested now. They may be interested in 6 months. There are different levels. And I think that's where a lot of contractors get mixed up a little bit, is understanding where the person is in the buying decision and and what the value of that lead is today. Everyone wants to buy a closed sale, but
Yeah.
that's not a lead,
Yeah.
right? That's not a lead. So proper expectations of what you're getting is going to be a major factor into what is a quality lead versus not quality.
Yeah.
So a quality lead is a lead that you get it's an opportunity. It's
Mm-hmm.
not a closed sale. Um, certain measuring the metrics behind all of these things is probably the key to determining whether this is a good lead source or what are the best lead sources and what are the worst lead sources. I'm all about testing.
Yes.
Doing digital marketing, we test. We're measuring where people's mouses are going on on our clients' websites. We're seeing what images they're watching and videos that they're watching, and we're measuring all the time. It's part of, I'm an analytical person, right? So
Love
it's
hearing that.
easy for me to do that. But so the best lead sources will be the ones that have the higher conversion rates. And let's be truthful, a lead source for your company may not work well, but a lead source for that same lead source in another company may work well.
Yeah.
There are every salesperson, your sales team may have different strengths,
Mm-hmm.
right? They may be better on on the canvassing front, door knocking, face to face. But when they take that lead from a third party lead service provider, they don't know what to do with it, right? They don't call the person back quickly. They don't follow up multiple times. There's a different skill set that goes into that lead that you're getting from some of those third party lead providers. So if you have the proper expectation, right? The expectation that if you buy that lead, 3 to 5 other companies are getting that lead. You have to be the first person on the phone with the customer. You have to be competitive in your pricing. You have to be able to sell the value of your company versus those other providers. If
Mm-hmm.
you are able to do that well, you can make those third-party lead sources a
And
viable aspect of your business,
yeah.
right? But most contractors I talk to cannot do that.
Yeah.
And
And you got to be first. You got to do all of it, but you also have to do it first.
you do.
Especially if it's a storm lead, because ultimately people are going to laugh. Here I am running a sales and marketing channel. It's not selling because the need's already established and someone else is paying for it. so if you're not first, you're last. And usually people just want to like check it off the box, like, oh, got the roof handled, right? So I want to touch on that because by the way, I'm taking some notes so I don't interrupt you.
No, for sure.
When you mentioned like certain lead sources work for some companies and some don't work for others, I experienced it firsthand when I was in the industry. I remember we tried Facebook super hard in Wisconsin and we generated dismal results.
Yeah.
Didn't work. And we tried there's different markets in Wisconsin. So we tried the northern market and then we had office in the southern market. And the southern market's a little more progressive, a little more up to speed. And it's still nothing. Then we worked a storm out in Montana and we generated leads like mad off of Facebook. And I was like, and it was a market that's a little bit super blue collar, behind the times in many ways. And I'm like, how in the world do we crack the code on Facebook in this market? Not what I predicted. Facebook over here didn't work at all. Yeah. Then the other day, I'm talking with a company, was doing some consulting with them. And they're like, hey, we're doing great. And again, it was a third-party lead source. So lead comes in and it's farmed out to a bunch of people. And they're pretty cost-effective. Yep. And I'm like, yeah, those things are horrible. Aren't they? He goes, dude, we close them like mad. We close 1 in 5. And I'm like, they're $75 a piece. So I find often in more rural markets or smaller markets, those leads can work really well. And for us, like, man, it was one in a million that worked. So yeah. Direct mail can be excellent in some markets and flop in others. And by the way, side note, the more targeted, the more playful, the more personal the direct mail, the better versus postcards. That's why in my battle pack, there's now 5 direct mail letters that you can send that are really personal and fun. You can check them out. But anyway, back on that whole thing of like best versus worst, I want to take one step back here. When we talk about best, I just want to put some parameters on that so we're all thinking in the right place, because best is ideal. And then we're going to talk about what falls in this category and what falls in the worst. Best is they already know you, right? This ties back into the omnipresence, which Jim, I want you to chat on in here in a minute. Sorry, I just lost my train of thought. They already know you. They have an intention of finding someone. It is an exclusive lead. It is a low-cost lead. It is a highly qualified lead with a high close rate. These are the best leads. Self-generated, door knocking, direct mail letters, working the neighborhoods, referrals. Now we'll talk digital. Worse leads. They don't know you yet. They're kicking the tires. They're expensive, or they're cheap, high volume. They have a low closing rate, and you have a lot of hoops to jump through because they don't know you yet. So let's talk worst first here. What has been your experience with the worst? And I don't want names of people, obviously. No. I don't want to slander anyone because people have had success. And here's the other thing. Whatever's working for you, do more of. Pretty simple. Right. So worst lead sources or kind of last places that you would advise someone to spend money on leads. What has been your experience on those sources?
So a couple of things. So starting off with, if you're not ready to answer the phone every time, don't buy third-party leads.
Agreed.
That would put those in that worst category immediately, right? Mm-hmm. One of the places that I see people failing at miserably in their lead generation in digital marketing is through Google pay-per-click advertising.
Yeah.
Google pay-per-click advertising is a mature marketing channel in 2020, and there's a lot of competition there, and it has to be done things have to be done extremely well to develop that trust of the searcher to generate the phone call to then close that sale.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very costly effort if you're not doing it right.
Yeah.
And so I think that when you're not doing some things right, if you're generating leads through your search engine optimization, and you have the guy with the yellow hard hat and the button-up shirt and the shiny white teeth with a hammer in his hand, you're not building trust before that person calls you. If they don't trust you, if there is a lack of trust in any way, that lead is going to convert on a much less than having trust. So about 70% of the buying decision these days is made before the phone call.
It's huge.
Why is that? Because we have the internet.
First
we have all of the world's information at our fingertips. We've already researched how much it costs. We've already researched, the best companies in the area. We've already researched. So by putting yourself into those conversations, you can then increase the conversion rate of your lead sources, going back to that omnipresence. Having a great online reputation will increase the opportunity that you have in that when you're working with that lead, right? Because they can go to Google and see that you have 100 positive reviews for your company. That's a big trust factor, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a lot of the process is about building the trust. The other part is the commercial intent behind the lead, right?
Just gonna touch on that. You beat me to it.
So the commercial intent behind the lead is you have to understand where this person is coming from, where this lead is coming from, and the mindset of that consumer. Mm-hmm. So if the consumer is of the mindset of, I need to call someone today, my roof is leaking, a hailstorm just came through, something like that, they have commercial intent. They're more ready to buy versus someone that is more what we talk about is informational type queries. And a lot of these third-party lead providers will rank their websites with a lot of informational content. and then they will generate a lead through that informational content. If you would like more information, give us your name and email address. And then they sell that as a lead. Well, that person may not have the commercial intent.
They may not be serious.
They may not be in a buying mode, right?
Yeah.
They're not ready to buy. They're just looking for information. And that's where your closing rates are going to go down drastically, is talking to the wrong person. Okay. Yeah. I know you do a lot of training on for the restoration industry, right? The door knocking, the canvassing. You see the hail swath, and let's hit that area, right? That is a person is ready to buy. Why don't you go across town and knock those doors?
Because you're not in the right spot.
You're not in the right spot, right? So put yourself in the right position to have the right, to have the right lead in front of you.
Yeah.
And that, that's going back to, that referral is the best, cheapest, most exclusive lead, right? It's because you're in the right place. That person wants to buy. All of the trust was passed from their friend or family member. And now you get to order take and not sell.
Exactly. It's lay down deals. And just a short plug. So I was on Jim's podcast, the Roofer Marketer podcast, and we talked about referrals and increasing the value. That video Jim was kind enough to share, so it's on this channel. I also have a couple of videos on my referral strategy and program that has done really well, very, very well. And there's a whole bunch of material in the marketing battle pack on that. So if you are interested in that referral, you can check it, or the referral program, you can check it out. But I want to go back to this intent. So Jim's using the word commercial intent, which means I want to buy something. And I want to share a little story so you guys can think about getting in the mind of our shopper or our potential homeowner who might be wanting to choose us, you, the roofer. Think of it like this. Imagine you're with your family and it's before school shopping and you want to go buy shoes. What do? You get in your car, you drive to the shoe store. You're very intentional. I need shoes. I'm going to the shoe store. Okay. That story is someone who goes on Google and searches best roofer Austin, Texas. They're going to the shoe store. On the flip side, imagine you are going back to school shopping, maybe. Better yet, you're kicking some time at the mall. You're bringing the family out. Maybe you're going to do a movie and walk around the mall, and you have no real desire to shop. You're just with the family having an outing, and you just so happen to walk by stores leaving the movie theater or going to the movie theater, and you walk by a shoe store and you're like, oh, cool. And then maybe you pop in. That's Facebook. Facebook is you're walking past the stores on your way in or out of the movie theater. You don't really have any desire to go. You're not there for the sole purpose of finding the thing, right? Otherwise you'd get in your car and drive to the shoe store. So people, and I'm bringing this up because I want to segue into social media for a minute. Roofers ask me all the time, how do I get leads on Facebook? It is way harder. And yes, you can do it. And yes, there are ways to do it effectively. But it's really important to understand that people are on Facebook for entertainment. They're on the toilet, for all you know, literally killing time while they're sitting there. They're waiting in the doctor's office. They're on the train to and from work, whatever, right? Watching TV and the multi-device thing. But those people, when they see an ad, it's not like, oh my gosh, I'm on Facebook. I'm ripping through my newsfeed. I can't wait to see an ad for the roofer I need to call. No, they want to go watch a cat, climb a cat tree and make a funny face, or see what Aunt Sally's doing, or their best friend, or who took a selfie on whatever platform. So if you can get your mind in the shopper for a minute and know, I want to find a person on Google who's going to the shoe store, right? Boom, that's the best lead versus capturing them on social media. So Jim, can you shed some light on how omnipresence, retargeting ads we talked about, how you can leverage that on a social media platform like Facebook to get high quality leads?
Yep, for sure. So let's talk to that we shot the other video about omnipresence. We did another video on omnipresence, and you can watch that, and it goes into a lot more detail and actionable steps there. But the main aspect of omnipresence is it comes down to what we call impressions, right? The number of times a potential customer can see you. Traditional marketing methods of getting impressions are things like billboards. You put up a billboard and 50 to 100,000 cars drive by here every day. Some people are going to look up. Not anymore. They're all looking down at their phone while they're driving, but they used to look up, and that was an impression for your business.
Yeah.
And in the accumulation of those impressions, you generate brand awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And through brand awareness, you get to occupy what one of my podcast guests on the Roofing Success podcast, one of my guests on there talked about as mental real estate.
I like that.
And
That, by the way, that's from Positioning, Jack, the book I mentioned
from
before.
positioning. Yep.
Yeah. It's about owning the real estate in their mind.
Owning the real estate in the person's mind, and it was the guys from Honest Abe Roofing that were on that had this, that were talking about that, and they were all, that's the most expensive real estate in the country, right?
It is.
It's the most valuable, right? So for the people in your service area to know you as the trusted professional in your field is more valuable than almost anything,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, but that starts with impressions.
Yeah.
So you start with impressions, and that's where social media is great. The TV advertising, there's a reason why Coca-Cola has ads everywhere.
Yeah.
Right? They are omnipresent, right? You cannot escape it. It's why big, really huge corporations buy the naming rights to stadiums.
Mm-hmm.
It's impressions, right?
Yeah. Don't go overboard, because you can spend a lot of money without a return. So you got to invest wisely.
And so you can do that on, through social media, because when that person is scrolling through their feed, if you end up in that feed, if you are able to put yourself in their Facebook feed, you are getting an impression. And that impression leads to brand awareness, which leads to that occupation of mental real estate.
Yeah.
So that's the whole goal on social media. Now, can you generate a lead from social media today, right? Omnipresence and building impressions into brand awareness is a long-term marketing strategy. You can't do it for a month and expect amazing results. Mm-hmm. You have to continuously do it forever.
Yep.
Now, there are ways to generate a lead on social media, because we can tell, say, for instance, in storm damage restoration, we know where the hail fell.
Mm-hmm.
We know the homeowners that are affected. We know the specific area, so we can do what's called geofencing, and essentially we draw a line around that area and only put ads in that area that are very specific to the needs of that buyer at the time. And we know that the consumers in that area have commercial intent, because 2-inch hail just fell on their house, right?
Yeah.
So they have, we have, not that we know, we have a pretty good assumption that they have commercial intent. So during a hailstorm, you can then do more of a direct lead generation strategy, right? It's another knock on their door. So
yeah, the other thing on that, like when we talk about branding and owning the real estate, the analogy of owning the real estate is like, if I said facial tissue, the first thing you think of is Kleenex. If I say bleach, the first brand you think of is Clorox, right? That is owning the real estate as the position. So roofer, Dallas, Texas. And by the way, I use Texas because I know a lot of my
viewers
fans live in Texas. Yeah. So if I'm saying, hey, I want the best roofer in Dallas, boom, you want to be the name that they think of. Yeah. To be positioned as the name. So that's the real estate, because people aren't like, oh, I couldn't even name another facial tissue company. I have no idea. Kleenex. It's like, oh, and you can walk through the store. I'm looking for some Kleenex. And then they'll just bring you to all the facial tissues. But on that note, when we talk about owning the real estate, it's owning the real estate in the right people's mind. The right people. Without spending too much money. Because so many people be like, oh, well, I just need to do branding. So they'll like spend all this money on way overproduced videos, and they don't have the right distribution plan, or they're getting it in front of the wrong people, or they're sponsoring like the kids' baseball team in an area where no one owns a home. It's like, but that's not the right market. You need homeowners. So with this strategy, Jim, that Jim mentioned on geofencing, or targeting very specifically, you want to make sure that you are in front of those people, because that way, as they see you a bunch of times, now there's a much higher likelihood of leads coming in. And the leads that do come in know you, like you, trust you. They're higher qualified, more intent. They're the people that are getting in a car to drive to a shoe store. Your conversion rate from inquiry, or contact, they reach out, to getting an appointment set, are much higher. So it's important to have a really clear strategy about this, because mistakes can get expensive. Jim's a guy to talk to for that. I've made my own mistakes before. Like I spent, I forget what it was, like 30 some thousand bucks on a whole branding thing in one of my first business ventures, that I literally, my return was 400, not the 30,000 back plus the 400. I made
Just
$400 back,
Yeah.
because I spent all this money online building an audience of people who didn't have any money to spend with me. And it was and for me, $30,000 at that point was a crap load of money. And it is, I mean, it's a lot of money for anyone to just, flush down the toilet.
Yep.
I could have had a lot more fun with it other ways, but it's an expensive lesson, because I didn't have an actual plan in place. So if you're listening to this or watching this and you're like, hey, this all sounds really good, I want a plan, find someone. Jim would be a great resource to start, but find someone to put together a plan with you, so there's every part of the strategy is fitting together. So your omnipresence and your remarketing and your Google all works together in synergy. So if someone clicks through and doesn't contact you right away, that they're going to be still being churned through on this omnipresence campaign. They call it Google retargeting or remarketing. So the next time they give you a call.
For sure. And one of the most difficult things that in your explanation of a great lead, the most difficult thing is exclusivity.
Yes.
Right. Because in today's world, we can't stop them from searching again. Mm-hmm. Or calling the next company. Yep. And every one of you has run into that potential customer that will not sign anything until they have 3 to 5 bids in front of them that they can fully analyze, right? Yep. So you have to have the proper expectations in everything you do, right? You're not going to get them all. It's not going to happen. There's no magic, magic unicorns or diet pills to make this work for you. It's doing the right thing over and over again. Yep. And utilizing as, I don't know if are you familiar with Jim Rohn?
Yeah.
Right.
What was
an old sales trainer, right?
Yeah.
He's an old sales trainer. He passed away many years ago, but he was kind of in the likes of Brian Tracy and those guys, right?
12 Pillars of Success, wasn't that his book?
Which one?
12 Pillars of Success, was it?
Success. It could have been. I
think so.
It escapes me.
Yeah, I know Jim Rohn.
One of the things that I took from some of his content back then was he said you need 5 to 7 lead sources to have a stable business. And I always thought that was so important. So, some lead sources are going to have a better conversion rate for you, right? Mm-hmm. Some lead sources are going to fill gaps, and they may not have a great conversion rate, but mm-hmm. they fall within your optimal customer acquisition cost. And so you can continue to use that, right? You can continue to fill your pipeline with that, because there is something called the long-term value of a client on the other end of it, mm-hmm. right? So a lot of times we think about these lead sources as, did I close it today? When it's that there's a lot more to it, and make sure that you have the expectations around all of that, because there's a lot of ways to generate leads. If you need 5 to 7 lead sources, of course, your first is referrals. I've talked to contractors that have built, multiple 7-figure businesses on referrals.
Yeah.
Like I was doing an analysis for a $12 million a year commercial roofing contractor who built their website in 2005. They weren't ranking for one keyword. They weren't running one ad spend. They weren't doing anything. They were doing $12 million a year in business, strictly on reputation and word of mouth, right? And so it's an amazing, it was an amazing feat that they accomplished in doing that. But now they are seeing that their market share is slowly getting picked out, because now people are going to, maybe some of the people that they've worked with over the years are retiring, and a millennial takes their position, and that millennial goes, best commercial roofing contractor near me. Right?
Yeah. Or
And
uses voice search now.
you use voice search. That's right. Yeah. So it's being up to date and continuously improving on the methods, being open to all new lead sources,
Mm-hmm.
and testing, right?
Yeah. Test.
Test, and don't. One of the things that I see contractors doing, especially, we do SEO, and SEO is a long-term marketing strategy. It's not a short-term marketing strategy, and it's, again, one of those things that never ends, because the factors are what you're doing, what your competitors are doing, and what Google is doing. There are three factors in getting success in search engine optimization. And so, do you think that if you get that number one spot, that the company down the street isn't going to try and get that number one spot, right? It's an all encompassing. So it's, your lead sources will not stay the same every year, or your best lead sources.
Yeah.
Right. Get a good storm through, canvassing is going to be, that could be the best lead source for your business, right? Another year that doesn't have good storms in your area, if you have storms in your area, you might have to put some money into paid traffic, or these third party, things, lead generation companies, to keep the leads coming in, to keep your best crews busy. So there's a lot of factors that go into that too. And in regards to that, but in social media targeting, you'd mentioned targeting. So
stay focused.
For a quick thing on that billboard that you get on the side of the road, or that TV commercial that people that were so successful for many years, you don't know who's sitting on that couch. You don't know who's driving in that car. So that's it's an amazing thing that we are able to do with technology these days, is the ability to target people very specifically.
Yeah. And it is ever changing, the ability to get in front of the right people.
Ever changing.
So is there anything that we missed that you want to touch on before I kind of wrap up some key takeaways for folks?
No, I think we covered a lot of ground.
We did cover a lot of ground. And I want to close with this. There is no hard and fast answer that is a one size fits all for anyone. And the same goes for how to pay your sales team, how to scale effectively. There is no one size fits all solution, period. Anyone that tells you there is, or that's selling the silver bullet, is I would just approach cautiously. And here's what I'd like to leave with. The 5 key metrics that you need to measure. Again, your cost per lead, your total leads, your qualified leads. So if you're getting 100 leads, but only 50 are qualified, meaning they're actually people you want to do business with, then, that's only 50% of the leads that come in are qualified. You want to work to improve that number maybe. And then what is your closing rate? So of those 50 qualified leads, are you closing 20%, 60%, 80%? And that will factor into your customer acquisition cost. How much money you're willing to exchange to get a customer in return? If your average sale is 10 grand, you make $3,500. How much of that 3,500 are you willing to spend to have earned it? When you know those numbers, your best lead sources are the ones that work. Do more of that are predictable, meaning I'm going to invest this money and I'm going to get this in return, and they are scalable. So if Google is it, do more, spend more, ramp it up. If Facebook is it, do more, spend more, ramp it up. If it's canvassing, do more, spend more, ramp it up. So the answer is all on your market, your specific sales process and cycle, and knowing your numbers. If someone tells you the best lead source is this, don't do it. I'll tell you, for ours, we did really well on hiring outbound call teams. We did great with exclusive leads of people calling on our behalf to set appointments for telemarketing. Then that got hard. We did really well with direct mail. And then the digital landscape was very, very unpredictable and volatile. And this was years ago. Things have changed. I haven't personally run any. And then now I'm running into people like you, Jim, who are like, dude, this digital landscape. I love when you and I shared stories and you're like, check this out. By the way, I have to do one plug for Jim. he's got a really incredible way that when someone fills out a lead form, the phone rings to them from you instantly, right?
For sure. Yeah. And that speed to contact,
Yeah.
especially, you know, a lot of these people don't know you with these lead sources, whether it's a third party lead
Mhm.
source, a paper through something that comes through Facebook,
Yeah.
or even if it comes through, even if you've got the impressions and got some of that mental real estate and they call and you don't call them back, that sets an impression in their mind. So the way that we structured our call tracking system is that when someone fills out a form online, it generates a phone call to your business. You answer, it says press 1 to connect with a new web form lead. You press 1, it does an outbound dial to the number they put in the form, and you are on the phone with them in, say, 20 seconds.
How amazing. It's friggin' wild. And by the way, Jim did share a recording with me, and it was super cool because the customer answered. They're like, "Whoa, that was fast," and it was playful and fun. So, and by the way, that experience when I shared, "Hey, we had a hard time in digital," but then remember the market. Then we ended up times
Mhm.
change. Facebook worked really well for us in Montana. So the digital landscape is changing and more consumers are on that platform. So if it were me, if it were my company, what I'd be doing now, I would be focusing in two key areas. One, I'd be finding the digital channels that work because that's where people's attention are, period. People, I mean, no one can even get through a TV show without
No.
having their phone in front of them on Facebook, searching, researching, tinkering, whatever it is. And I would maximize the snot out of my boots to the ground marketing, my canvassing, my referrals, my direct mail that's really, really targeted. But those are the two areas that I personally would spend the time on. I'd find what works the most and then I'd ramp it up and put my efforts there. So I want to leave people. Did I miss? Is there anything that you want to leave people with?
No. Scale the winners, cut the losers.
I love it. That's exactly it. Do what works and do more of it. I have 3 questions written on my personal whiteboard. It says, what's working now and how can I do more of it? What's not working and what can I delete, delegate, or automate? And if you can apply that, by the way, that goes full credit to my good friend Adam, not me, Adam, different Adam. And he coached me through that process. What's working? How do you do more? What's not working? What can you delete, automate, or delegate? Find that with your lead sources, and you will scale beyond belief because the number one thing you need to scale is leads, period. All right. Thank you guys. We went long, but this was super valuable. I don't want to cut anything short.
That's right.
Jim, thank you so much for being here. This has been awesome.
No problem. Check us out
So
at roofermarketers.com, at Roofer Marketers, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, search Roofer Marketers, and check out the Roofing Success Podcast.
yeah, Jim's podcast is awesome. I got to be a guest. It's on there. So again, Roofer Marketers, ROOFER, marketers.com. To get in touch with Jim, he'll set you up with some really cool stuff, get you some leads, help out with your local rankings and all that. Now, anyone else who is here, you are welcome to opt in to my free ebook, The 3 Tricks to Get to the Kitchen Table. Join the 30-day sales challenge. It's also free. You're going to get instant access to a playlist to walk you through my process to plan, approach a storm, attack with a clear strategy, and make some money. And again, you can check out my material inside the Roofing Marketing Battle Pack. Link below. Subscribe, click like, thumbs up, lets me know that this is content you want to hear more of, and subscribe for new videos every Tuesday. Jim, thanks again for being here.
Awesome. Thanks a
In
lot.
advance. We'll see you in the next one.
All right.
Take care.